Welcome to Home, Space and Reason, a podcast about creating a home that thrives.
Hi there, I'm Christina Browning, your host. If you know your home could be so much more than it is, I discuss home functionality, aesthetics, and automation. I'm a realtor in Portland, Oregon, and a home functionality coach nationwide. I geek out on every subject imaginable regarding your home and yard, challenging you to think of your space differently to get the most out of every square foot. I pose questions for you to think through about your space and your reason. This podcast is all positive, offering you virtual fist bumps and celebrating every win. Remember, there's no such thing as perfect, but you can still aim for your best every day. If you'd like to connect on social, find the handle Space and Reason. A note. This is a video version, so if you are able to watch this, there are some images to coincide with this story, as I felt that was especially important in painting the picture that we describe here. This is part 2 of a 2-part interview with my wonderful client, Tara. The first part, which was the story about her family who moves overseas and comes back to the U.S. to buy a home, and she discusses coming up with her list of priorities. That turned into episode 77. Her interview continues here, and in this episode, we're going to hear about her anxiety-inducing kitchen and the solutions to it. When you look at my home functionality diagram of 6 lenses that I use when assessing home functionality, rarely is a problem isolated. Let's talk briefly about these 6 areas of thought. The lenses are aesthetics and furniture choices, how things look, floor plan, how your home or condo is set up, which includes consideration for square footage or lack thereof. Ability to identify sources of friction. What is going wrong and why is this happening? Automation, hacks, and habits. This includes both digital automation using things like smart lights and smart home systems, and your own automation, what you are doing automatically and why. Ability to edit. This addresses how much you have in your home, including duplicates of things. Sentimental things and clutter fall into this category as well. And lastly, organization. Pretty self-explanatory. When I work with clients, typically we're touching on at least 2, if not 3, of the areas in my diagram. And for everyone, these 3 are different. Addressing just organization without all the others is setting yourself up for failure. Just because a room might be organized doesn't mean it will stay that way. It also doesn't mean it will make sense to you. If you haven't edited things down and you don't have a good routine for laundry, as an example, organizing a space is an exercise in futility. You can't operate in a vacuum. Everything touches everything. Your lighting even influences you, whether you are aware of it or not. Many times people who call me initially don't know why they don't like their space. They just know it doesn't feel right or it isn't working. Sometimes another family member feels the angst more than the person calling me. And the call that I get is reactionary to get help for the person who has the most angst with this space. Some people are more affected by their built environment than others. I recently finished an open concept kitchen area for a client of mine named Tara. I'm such a big fan of her and her husband, who I initially met as a referral from another client of mine when I represented them in a home purchase. Do you remember what you initially said when you reached out? Now, this is what, 2 years after you've bought, so you guys have completely settled in, lived in the home for a while, and then you called me. Do you remember what you said? So it was something to the effect of, "I don't know why I don't like it, but I know our kitchen is making us crazy."
Yes, yes. Okay. I would have said something like that because it's funny. I wrote some notes and that those are some of the things that I put in my notes is I couldn't figure it out, but I was completely ready to demo the entire kitchen and just be done. So, yes, but I learned why as we went on. It was so bothersome.
So you felt like you didn't like the countertops,
Hmm.
you didn't like the cabinets, you didn't like
Oh my gosh. And it was so small. I think the one thing that, we have this very big house, and then the kitchen felt like it was so small. We would often say it was an afterthought in the building of this home. There's no counter space, there's a limited cabinet. They put the island too close to the fridge, no walking transitional space. There was no counter space. I mean, I had a lot of negative feelings about everything about the kitchen. And the interesting thing is I really felt it had to be scrapped, that there was just no way that we would be able to ever make it, like it was a foundational problem. And so we had to just start over, is kind of what I kept thinking about that space. But our funds were limited. And so I knew that I wouldn't be able to do that. So that's one of the reasons why I called you, because I knew that you would be able to help me work with what I had. And one of those things was the counters, which I hated the counters so much, and they're granite tile. I'm also don't like to be a wasteful person. That stuff will be around forever. And it just seemed really incredibly wasteful to rip out countertops that will just live in a landfill for the rest of time. And but I didn't like the color. I mean, there were just so many things I didn't like about the kitchen when you showed up.
when we had that initial 2-hour session and we started talking about the paint, there's more tension happening in your family with different people specific to the kitchen. I know that it was manifesting in a lack of ease in that space.
Hmm. Well, the kitchen was impacting our families like at like a very base level for some of us nutritionally. Because if we walked into the space and it was overwhelming, didn't feel right, didn't make sense, was cluttered, like there were visual obstructions, and then we might just not even go in there, and we were just going to, avoid it. It was like if it was too chaotic, we would just avoid it entirely. And if you avoid the kitchen, then you aren't eating. And so that was a whole thing that we were kind of dealing with within the family, is that some of us just really were so uncomfortable there that we weren't even just getting basic needs met. And it was difficult to ask for help. And a lot of times that would increase tension, irritability, frustration, because if somebody couldn't operate in that space and they had to then go to somebody else to ask for help, it was just compounding the whole issue. It was just, I actually get disgusted when I look at this before picture, because it just reminds me of how hard it was. It's just so hard every day, every meal, every time. This kitchen is kind of the center of the main floor of the house. There's no avoiding it. You're always looking at it. And I don't even like to look at the before picture, because I actually feel those feelings again of unease and just irritation. It's chaotic. All the pieces are arguing with each other. It doesn't look peaceful, warm. I mean, not like it is now.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about that. So, one of the colors in the countertop that you didn't like is a brown. And I
Hmm.
said, what if we paint the cabinets all brown? And you were so kind and gracious, and you said, okay. Except later I found out that you were like, really? Right? You were a little bit apprehensive in the beginning.
100% apprehensive. Trending right now is very clean, almost a sterile looking kitchen with white on white on white. Like, and so I had kind of put in my mind that we were going to go in that direction to calm it all down. Like, I just felt like to calm this all down and to make it a place that we can be in, it is going to have to be almost like a sterile, clean look. Like, I just want it to be completely a blank slate, like not even just kind of fade away, kind of a thing. So I think for me, when you were like brown, I just thought, oh my gosh, that's going to be so dark. It's going to just, I didn't trust in the beginning the plan for the brown because where you got the brown was from the tile or the granite that I didn't like. And so I was just like, why are we going all in on this black, brown, gold countertop? We can't go all in. I did. I probably didn't tell you my full feelings in the beginning. But the thing is I trust you. That's why I had you come. I've done DIY projects myself. I've chosen the colors and I've never got it right. I don't like resolve the issue once I'm done with it. It might have a fresh coat of paint. It might have, some rearranged furniture, whatever, but it doesn't rise to the level that I wanted when I began the project. And so I did say yes to the brown. I was like, let's do it. Okay, if you say so, fine.
So being as handy as you actually brought a sprayer and put up all the plastic and taped everything off. And as it was going up, tell me your thoughts.
Well, first of all, just in the can, it was so beautiful. Like, it just was this rich, oh, I don't know. It just really was pretty. It was just this very warm color.
So the countertop is a combination of black and chocolate. I don't want to say fleck, maybe more of a swirl for granite. And so the reason why I took the brown out was because I think she didn't like the countertop because it was kind of an afterthought. Nothing went with it. It was not intentional. And so by pulling out that brown, it became a piece of a multifaceted puzzle. It felt like it went together. It played in the same sandbox, if you will, with the countertops. So bringing that brown in gave the countertop purpose from a color standpoint.
As it was going up, I was all in. It was so pretty. It just looked gorgeous. The thing that I had done before that, though, Christina, I don't know if you remember, you had asked that we paint the walls in the kitchen the same color as the trim.
Yes, let's talk about that. So we were having a discussion. The walls were a baby blue everywhere. They had sprayed every room in the whole house this baby blue, and there was a lot of trim, very extensive, beautiful trim, painted in a very warm cream color. And if you know anything about the color wheel, you know that baby blue, very cool, and cream, very warm, don't play together nicely. And so when you would be in a space, you just knew it wasn't comfortable. But neither the cream nor the baby blue are offensive. It's just they don't sit well together. So a lot of people just know they don't love the space but can't really put their finger on why. And so instead of having the conversation, what color do we paint the wall? Because our intent was to bring more calm to the space, less chaos, I said, let's just paint out the wall Everything is going to be the same color as the trim, a warm, cream, delicious color. That makes the trim more of a texture than it does a color because everything is the same. It's just the trim is a raised detail. So it's more subtle, it's more sophisticated.
And again, just like with the brown, I was like, no, why are we going all in on this color? So the interesting thing is that I had already done the painting of the wall prior to the cabinets, and immediately I loved it. I was like, oh my gosh, I hadn't even touched the cabinets yet, and there isn't a lot of wall space in the kitchen. I mean, it's just a little strip above the cabinets, really, and it was just, I already was like, okay, this is amazing. Just changing the wall color. So then once that brown was up against that,
Cream. Yes. It's so good together. It's so
it
good.
was amazing. I was so motivated to keep going because it was a whole lot of work.
And so the reason why we took the brown out of the countertops is because then the countertops felt included instead of like an argument. So they were intentional
Hmm.
and they were part of the design. And then you now don't mind the countertops at all.
No, I love them. I love everything in the kitchen.
So sometimes you'll see builders make interesting choices just to save a buck. And the backsplash in your kitchen was also the same tile they used around the fireplace, which was also the same tile they used on the floor in the primary bathroom. And all of that was blue and brown variegated rough slate tile. So it was very much like a mountain home, maybe. Not at all in line with the chunky, elaborate trim that was featured in this space. And there wasn't even a lot of it, but because of the color, it was very dominant. So we took out the tile. Tara actually did that herself, all the demo work, and we came in and put just a simple cream, flat, matte subway tile with black grout, which actually incorporated the black of the granite up into the backsplash, so they played well together. The cream is pretty much the identical cream that's in the paint in the wall, so that quieted everything down and made it feel ultra intentional. Because it's an open floor plan and you can see straight through from the living room into the kitchen area and vice versa, you could also see this same tile on the fireplace. And because oftentimes when a tile person comes in to install, there's a minimum, we decided to take the tile off around the fireplace as well and have that replaced at the same time so that when the tile person came out to do the kitchen, they could do the fireplace at the same time and it would all feel cohesive.
I mean, like it was meant to be. We had friends over last night, and like they just can't stop every time they come to the house. They're just like, "Ah, what a beautiful space. What a beautiful space." And it's so fun to always be, getting that feedback. I feel that way every day. I walk into it now. But the fact that the counters I could change my mind so much about them just by kind of leaning into them and not creating an argument, like you said.
Well, I genuinely believe the reason you didn't like the countertops is because they just didn't go with anything. It didn't feel intentional. And once we got everything to line up, the counters are just fine. They're beautiful. That you would not ever know that this wasn't part of an all brand new kitchen.
That's just something I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know to do that. Just get rid of them was kind of my idea in the beginning, but that wasn't feasible.
Tell me about the pattern of wallpaper I chose to put on the small island. You didn't pull the trigger on that originally. And I said, it kind of is going to be the thing that ties everything together. And then you're like, all right, all right, all right. So then you order it.
It really is. You used the word the stitch. So Will and I now have adopted your word. And we use that word like just in conversation, like a lot of times, because it really brought it all together.
So, just for context for our listeners, it's going only on the back side of the island in front of the two counter height stools, which are this beautiful green with a gold trim. They look like jewelry for the kitchen.
I didn't want to put it up in the beginning because I thought it was too busy. I thought, oh, here I have all this beautiful, everything is clean lines. And I mean, I'm so motivated now to like keep all the counters clean. Like the kitchen is like a masterpiece 24/7 now. And I was just afraid to mess it up. And the wallpaper looked busy to me. But then when I put it up there, it really is the stitch. It really is. It actually ties it all together. It's kind of a floral pattern wallpaper. It actually puts character into the space too. But again, intentionally, it's not matchy. It's just, it brings all those pieces together and it's fun. It looks finished.
And intentional. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're going to go back in time just a little bit and talk about the organizational piece of the home functionality chart. Tell me about the organizational day when Michelle and I came in and took everything out of your cabinets. Tell me, first of all, when you said, wait a minute, you actually come in and do the work, you pull everything out? Like, what? You can do that? And I was like, yeah. So what were your expectations that day? And then how did it go down? Did it go down how you thought it would? Because I thought that was really interesting because I'm me, I can't be another person to look in and say, well, this is what she does or this is what she doesn't do. You thought I just suggested things, I think.
You came in with like two big tables and everything came out of the cabinet. There is no way I would have ever thought to do that. I would just keep shifting, right? You just keep shifting little pieces and you're like, okay, maybe this will work better. One of the things that was a real problem for me with the kitchen in general was I thought it was too small. I mean, I just thought there wasn't adequate cabinet space at all. When you and Michelle showed up and you just started taking everything out of the cupboards, I just was like, oh, embarrassed, right? Because I think it's hard to see all the stuff. Even as you were bringing it out, I started realizing almost immediately that we didn't need a lot of the things that we were trying to cram or we weren't even using. It's funny, you just keep shifting things in your life. We just hadn't ever purged or been like, where do we need this? When do we use this? You and Michelle were so good about asking us, when do you use this? Do you use this every day? And we started consolidating when you put everything out and we got to see it, like every Tupperware dish. We realized I had like something like 4 colanders. We realized that I had so many baking supplies, which I never bake. So, I mean, I think that it was amazing to have those conversations and for you to be asking the questions because I don't believe, even if I watched a couple YouTube videos or read a book about being intentional, I think it's a process that's really good to do with someone else who is unbiased. They don't care if you need 4 colanders. You and Michelle personally did not care if I kept all 4. You just needed me to say what and when I would use them. And I was answering those questions. It was way easier for that process. So I loved that day. You left with a lot of stuff, all of which we do not miss. There has not been a single day that someone has gone into the kitchen and said, where's the
Colander, lemon zester. Yeah. When we left, we had several boxes, probably 4 big boxes, and I take them home and I photograph each individual item and I post each thing on Buy Nothing. So it's going to people in the community who need those things. So, despite me leaving with boxes and boxes and boxes full of stuff, you all have not missed one thing.
That just literally has not happened. It's been seamless. And now there is adequate. In fact, when you left, I had space in my cabinets that I could now work with and put, some things in there, which I haven't filled up yet, thankfully.
Tell me about the first Thanksgiving that you hosted after the changes had been made.
Oh, I'm so glad you brought that up. That brings I just felt all this good joy rush into my body. It was the funnest day.
So, the reason why this is relevant, and I feel like people need to hear about it, it's not about me tooting my horn. It's about the actual functionality of the space in real life. When we organize and we change the aesthetics and we clear the countertops and we make a new coffee bar so that it shifts the floor plan a bit, it actually impacts how people move in the space and how people act within the space. So this is where the rubber meets the road.
The kitchen's totally organized, and my mom and sister come here, and we could all be in the space. We were cooking together. Oh my gosh, it was just such a fun day. And I think I'm just not able to articulate how amazing it is to work in a kitchen, A, that I loved. It was beautiful, right? Secondly, so organized. It just was so easy to put things away. The biggest difference was all the workspace. My kitchen before had so much stuff on the counter because I had not utilized the inside of the cabinets correctly. So I had so much limited counter space. So if I had any cooking to do for a large group or had people over, I really didn't ever want anyone else in the kitchen. There's just no space. So this Thanksgiving after the organization was so fun because we could have multiple people in the kitchen doing different things. We were just creating memories and it wasn't stressful. I don't remember feeling agitated or irritated or frustrated with anybody because they may have walked into the kitchen, but that would have been me before because I was already just a constant heightened sense of overwhelm. And if anybody came into that space, even on Thanksgiving, I still would have been like, just stay away until it's ready. But I felt so much more eager to bring everybody in and have everybody doing jobs. And we were, it was so fun. We had such a great day. It was awesome. And it was easy to clean up.
Well, what's interesting about that is we did not change the footprint at all.
Mm-mm.
So, to remind everyone, you were frustrated, you didn't have space, there wasn't enough room before. And then we changed the aesthetics, we tweak the organization, we purge, which was ability to edit. So, we edit down the things. You still technically have the same space.
Mm-hmm.
We remove a built in desk that wasn't being used at all. And we put a piece of furniture there that serves now as a coffee bar,
Totally different.
which shifts a lot of the daily traffic, breakfast traffic, over to the other side of the kitchen.
Same space. It really is. And the funny thing is, too, my husband and I have mentioned this, it just looks like a bigger kitchen, which is not, it literally is not. It's the same kitchen. But like you said, we made some important changes that because I did a lot of the work myself too, we still stayed within a very tight budget. And literally it feels like we did a thirty to $40,000 kitchen remodel. It feels that way because of how much bigger it appears, how much more workable the space is. Like we have countertop, we have full use of our countertops now. The lighting, I know you really pushed for the lighting, and I wasn't really convinced that lighting was part of it. I don't know. Maybe it was like with the brown cabinets. I just trusted you. Oh my gosh, the lighting is like our favorite now. The under cabinet lighting, like the adjustable, like if we're working, we have it really bright. If we want to just kind of shut down the kitchen for the evening, it's down on low. Like it's fun. It's fun to be there and it feels like we have a new kitchen. But you're right, it's the same kitchen.
But it is totally different. The experience of being in there is so different. Now you have space, same space, same space.
100%.
It's wild.
100%. It's so fun. Well, another big thing is without all of the clutter, anybody can walk in there and think about what they want to do, plan it, get what they need. Everything is also labeled now thanks to you and Michelle. So it's even if somebody's helping out put things away, they know where they go. I mean, I used to have to assist anybody who was in the kitchen with where things went, and people would say, I'm not going to unload the dishwasher. I always put things in the wrong place, and people are way more inclined to help now. They use the space to cook, prep. They clean up after themselves more too. I think too, because the place, everybody like seems to respect that it needs to look the way we started. When you walked in here, all around people are eating and enjoying the space a lot. I really cannot put into words how much this has impacted us in such a positive way. I had no idea that we could be so happy. I know you do this for a living, so you understand the work you're doing and what it can do for somebody. But a lot of times, being on this side, you underestimate the influence of your space on your well-being.
When I do home functionality sessions, everyone usually does not need all 6 areas addressed. Typically, it's 2 or 3. Sometimes it's just 1. Sometimes it's 5. For this particular client, we addressed editing, we addressed organization, we addressed floor plan, and we addressed aesthetics. So that's 4 of the 6 areas for this particular home. Episode 45 is dedicated just to home organization, specifically the KonMari method. Most tidying methods advocate a room by room or little by little approach, creating a scenario that may just never ever be done because it's not structured with a beginning and an end. People around the world have been drawn to the KonMari method not only due to its effectiveness, but also because it places great importance on being mindful, introspective, and forward-looking. I've invited Kristen Ivy and Karen Sochi, licensed KonMari consultants and co-hosts of the Spark Joy podcast, dedicated to the transformative power of surrounding yourself with joy and letting go of all the rest. I'll put a link in the show notes for you to click through easily. If you'd like to work with me as a home functionality coach, DM me on social media with the handle Space and Reason. Head to my website, spaceandreason.com, or click the link in my show notes. I'm always excited to hear about the puzzles of the homes with interesting problems for me to chew on and work through with you. If you happen to know someone in the market to buy or sell in the greater Metro Portland, Oregon area, kindly send them my way. The finest compliment I could receive is the confidence of your referral. Thanks for sitting in on this conversation about creating a home that thrives. I'll meet you back here for the next episode.